What does it take to change a billionaire's heart? Sometimes it's losing everything. Welcome to Billionaire Heart Stories, real tales of America's wealthiest discovering what truly matters. These are stories you won't see in Forbes or on Wall Street. Here, a CEO serves soup to the families his company displaced. A luxury heir scrubs floors beside the woman he once fired. A corporate shark learns humanity from the people he thought were beneath him. Every episode, someone powerful goes undercover. Every chapter, someone broken finds healing. Every story asks, can someone who caused so much pain ever make it right? We believe the answer is yes, but the cost is everything. Billionaire Heart Stories, where hidden identities are revealed, justice is poetic, and the heart is the only currency that matters. Welcome home, Billionaire Heart Stories. The Maybach's leather interior smelled like money. That particular blend of Italian hide, sandalwood cologne, and the faint metallic tang of climate-controlled air. Andrew Terry sat in the back, iPad balanced on his knee, reviewing demolition contracts while Chicago's rush hour crawled past his tinted windows. Outside, Michigan Avenue glistened with October rain, the kind that turned the city's glass towers into vertical rivers of reflected light. 89 families. That's what the Pilsen Project would displace. The number sat at the bottom of page 3 in 8-point font, buried beneath zoning codes and market projections. Andrew's finger hovered over the signature line. "Traffic's worse than usual, sir," Robert said from the driver's seat. The old man's voice carried that careful neutrality of someone who'd learned when to speak and when to simply exist. Andrew grunted acknowledgement. His eyes tracked the pedestrians outside, the usual rush hour parade of loop workers fleeing to suburbs, tourists huddled under hotel awnings, the occasional homeless person that most eyes simply skipped over. Easier that way, less complicated. Then he saw her. The woman crossed against the light at Madison and Michigan, shoulders hunched against the rain, no umbrella, 2 overstuffed grocery bags cut into her arms, fabric straps leaving red marks on pale skin. She moved with a particular exhaustion Andrew recognized from somewhere deep in his memory. That specific tilt of the left shoulder, compensating for uneven weight. His hand shot out, iPad clattering to the floor. "Robert, stop, stop." The Maybach lurched. "Sir." "That woman," Andrew's voice came out strangled. "The one with the bags?" But she'd already turned down Adams Street, swallowed by the crowd. For exactly 4.7 seconds, Andrew had seen her profile in the streetlight's glow. The angle of her jaw, the way rain plastered dark hair against a too-thin face. Elizabeth, his ex-wife. The woman he hadn't seen in 3,652 days. He knew the count. Knew it the way some men know their golf handicap or their company's stock price. Every morning for 10 years, that number had ticked up in the back of his mind like a debt accumulating interest. "Which one, sir?" Robert squinted through the downpour. Andrew couldn't answer. His throat had sealed shut. Images cascaded through his mind with the violence of a dam breaking. Elizabeth at 22, laughing in that white sundress at the courthouse. Both of them too broke for anything resembling a real wedding. Elizabeth at 27, cradling newborn Emma, her face radiant with something Andrew had never quite understood. That pure, uncomplicated love. Elizabeth at 32, standing in the hospital corridor with eyes so dead they looked like stones, saying 6 words that ended everything. "She kept asking for you, Andrew." "No, sir." Robert's concern bled through his professional reserve. "Turn around." Andrew's voice came from somewhere far away. "Now." "Sir, I don't think—" "Turn around. Now." The Maybach executed an illegal U-turn. $200 ticket. Andrew didn't care. His heart hammered against his ribs like it was trying to escape. Appropriate, since the rest of him had been trying to escape for a decade. Escape the memory of Emma's empty bedroom. Escape the divorce papers with Elizabeth's shaking signature. Escape the fact that he'd chosen a Singapore merger over his daughter's last words. They caught up to her at the bus stop, the number 4 southbound. Andrew watched through rain-streaked glass as Elizabeth, if it was really her, if he wasn't hallucinating from stress and whiskey, and 10 years of willful forgetting, pulled out a small coin purse. Her fingers, thin and pale, counted exact change. Quarters, dimes, nickels. Elizabeth, who'd once had unlimited access to his black Amex, counting quarters, for a $2.50 bus fare. The bus pulled away before Robert could navigate the gridlock. Andrew watched its taillights disappear south, toward neighborhoods that existed in his world only as zoning maps and development proposals. Places with poverty rates and property values, not people and lives. "Robert," his voice sounded like gravel. "Follow that bus." The old man's eyes met his in the rearview mirror. "Sir, is this wise?" Andrew stared at the red taillights fading into Chicago's evening rain, at the city he'd conquered but never really seen, at the direction his ex-wife had vanished, towards some life she'd built in his absence. "I don't care if it's wise," he said quietly. "I need to know if she's okay." The rain intensified. Thunder rolled across Lake Michigan, and Andrew Terry, worth $2.3 billion, realized he had no idea where his ex-wife slept at night. The number 4 bus became Andrew's North Star. Threading through a Chicago he'd never bothered to learn, Robert kept 3 car lengths back, professional even in pursuit. The Maybach's GPS glowed blue, tracking their descent. Loop, South Loop, then past Roosevelt, where the neighborhoods started their slow transformation. Andrew watched each stop like a geographer mapping foreign territory. Stop 1. Roosevelt Road, clean. Gentrified. The Starbucks on the corner had been a bodega 3 years ago, before TerraVest converted the block. Andrew recognized his own handiwork in the exposed brick and Edison bulbs. Progress, they'd called it. He'd signed those papers without visiting the site. Stop 2, Cermak Chinatown tourist safe. Red lanterns and dim-sum restaurants. Nothing here required his attention. Stop 3, 35th Street. Bronzeville, IAT. The change announced itself in boarded windows and check-cashing stores. A closed hospital wore a hand-painted plea across plywood. Save our Southside. Andrew's stomach tightened. He'd read about this closure, never connected it to actual people who might need emergency rooms. Stop 4, 43rd Street. Elizabeth stood, pulled the cord. Andrew leaned forward, watching her navigate the aisle with those heavy bags. What was in them? Why so many groceries for one person? She exited into rain that had softened to mist, moved down cracked sidewalks with the ease of someone who'd walked this road 1,000 times. Her destination rose from the corner like a Gothic accusation. St. Catherine's, stone facade blackened by a century of Chicago soot. Stained glass windows, some intact, some patched with plywood. A hand-painted sign read, Community Kitchen, dinner 6 to 8 p.m., all welcome. Elizabeth didn't use the main doors. She circled to the back, descended exterior stairs to a basement entrance, disappeared underground. Andrew counted to 30, then, wait here, Robert. Oh, sir, I really don't think... But Andrew was already crossing the street, expensive shoes splashing through puddles he'd never have stepped in before. He found a position beneath a broken streetlight, peered through a half-below-ground window into a world that shouldn't exist 6 miles from his penthouse. The basement blazed with fluorescent light. Folding tables stretched in rows, 50, 60 people, mostly black and Latino faces, military jackets suggesting veterans, sleeping bags stacked in corners, telling harder stories. This wasn't a soup kitchen. This was a lifeline. Elizabeth materialized in his sightline, and Andrew's breath caught. She'd shed her coat, simple blue sweater, jeans. She dumped those grocery bags onto a counter, fresh vegetables, bread, chicken breast, bought with her own money, carried on a bus, brought to people who needed them. An older black woman hugged her. Lizzie, thank God. Marcus called in sick. We're short on servers. Lizzie. Andrew hadn't heard that name since college. At their courthouse wedding, Elizabeth had made him promise. Always Elizabeth, never Lizzie. But here, in this church basement with people who actually knew her, she was Lizzie. She was smiling, genuinely smiling, in a way Andrew hadn't seen in over a decade. For 90 minutes, he watched her work. Serving food, touching shoulders, calling people by name. Mr. Washington, how's your back? Rosa, did Tomas find work? Keep going, Damon. 12 days sober is huge. This wasn't charity. This was family. Around 8:20, Elizabeth leaned against the counter. Andrew saw it clearly. Dizziness. Her hand shot out, gripped the edge white-knuckled, steadied herself. A tremor ran through her fingers before she shook it off, continued serving. She was in pain, and hiding it. By 9:12, Elizabeth emerged from the basement, empty-handed now. She'd given away everything. She stood at the bus stop checking her phone. Cracked screen, 19-minute wait for the northbound bus. Andrew's hand touched the Maybach's door handle. He could cross the street. Talk to her. Explain. A homeless man approached Elizabeth. She handed him something, cash, maybe a bus ticket, talked for 2 minutes, hugged him, sent him shuffling into the night with more dignity than he'd arrived with. The bus came. Elizabeth let it pass, waited for the next one. Why? When she finally boarded the 9:31 bus, Andrew told Robert, I need everything. Where she lives, where she works, everything? The Robert's voice carried careful weight. Sir, is this wise? Andrew stared at the taillights vanishing north, carrying his ex-wife back to whatever life she'd built from the ruins of their marriage. Wisdom has nothing to do with it? As the bus turned the corner, Andrew could have sworn Elizabeth looked back, directly at the Maybach. Just for a second, did she know? Yolanda Martinez charged $8,500 for discretion. Andrew paid from personal funds, couldn't risk this appearing on corporate accounts. The former CPD detective met him in a Streeterville cafe, far from anyone who'd recognize either of them. You need to know everything, Andrew said, sliding an envelope across the table. But she can't know I'm asking. Yolanda's eyes, cop eyes, the kind that saw through expensive suits to the desperation underneath, studied him. "Sir, is this woman dangerous to you?" Andrew's laugh came out hollow. "Only to my conscience." The report arrived 7 days later. Andrew read it in his penthouse, whiskey untouched, watching each line demolish the fantasy he'd been constructing. Subject, Elizabeth Marie. Caldwell Residence, 4,216 South Cottage Grove Avenue, Unit 2B, 720 square feet. Rent, $1,150 per month. Employment, part-time bookkeeper, Bronzeville Family Health Center, 18 hours per week, $16. 50 per hour equals $1,276 per month, gross. Vehicle, none. Medical debt, $14,780 in collections. Bank balance, average $347. Andrew made more than her monthly income on interest while he slept. He'd spent more than her medical debt on a watch winder last quarter. Days 8 through 14, Andrew did what he hadn't done in 15 years, cleared his schedule. "Flu," he told his assistant. Marcus Yates grew suspicious but knew better than to push. In jeans and a hoodie, a billionaire's idea of invisible, Andrew shadowed Elizabeth's life from coffee shops and bus stops, learned her rhythm, Monday to Wednesday to Friday at the clinic, full days at St. Catherine's on Tuesday to Thursday. She skipped lunch, always. Bought groceries at Aldi, checking prices twice, using coupons like they were gold. Sunday, he followed her to Graceland Cemetery. 13.2 miles north, 58 minutes on 2 buses. She walked straight to Section 25, to a small granite marker. Emma, Grace Terry, beloved daughter, 2012 to 2019. Our little light, Andrew, watched from behind a mausoleum, heart fracturing, as Elizabeth sat on wet grass and read Where the Wild Things Are aloud to a headstone. For 47 minutes, she talked to their daughter, touched the engraved name, cried silently. Andrew hadn't visited Emma's grave in 9 years. Told himself forward motion meant never looking back. But Elizabeth came every Sunday, took 2 buses, read to a ghost. Day 14 shattered his observation. Elizabeth left the clinic at 1:05, carrying her reusable bags. Halfway down the block, she stopped, leaned against a building, sat on the curb, head between knees, trembling. Andrew was moving before he thought, but Dr. Sarah Kim reached her first. They spoke. Andrew couldn't hear. Elizabeth shook her head, clearly saying, "I'm fine." Eventually stood, walked away too carefully. Andrew intercepted Dr. Kim at her smoke break. "Excuse me, that woman you helped. Is she okay, doctor?" Kim's suspicion radiated like heat. "Who's asking?" "Someone who knew her a long time ago." The doctor studied him, then stubbed out her cigarette with more force than necessary. "She's slowly killing herself. Diabetes, anemia, hypertension. All manageable if she'd take her medications instead of buying food for strangers. I've told her 100 times." Her voice cracked. "It's like she's got a death wish, only slower." Andrew walked back to the Maybach on legs that didn't feel like his own. Sat in silence for 5 minutes, staring at nothing. "Robert, take me to St. Catherine's." "Well, sir, I need to see it. Up close." His phone buzzed. "Marcus Yates. Board wants update on Pilsen project. They're getting impatient." Andrew stared at the message. 89 families. Demolition orders, profit margins. Then he turned off his phone and watched Chicago scroll past, wondering when he'd stopped seeing it as a city and started seeing it as a spreadsheet. The Target clothes felt foreign against Andrew's skin. Gray sweatshirt, worn jeans, work boots Robert had bought without asking questions. Andrew left the Patek Philippe in the Maybach safe. No watch, no wedding ring. He'd never worn one anyway. Elizabeth had stopped wearing hers after Emma's diagnosis, the symbol too heavy for fingers that shook during chemo appointments. St. Catherine's basement entrance loomed before him at 5:47 p.m. Andrew's heart hammered like it used to before hostile takeover negotiations. Except those he'd been prepared for. Father Joseph Mwangi greeted him with a warmth that felt unearned. "First time, my friend?" Andrew managed a nod. "All are welcome here. Dinner's at 6:30. You can help serve if you'd like, or just eat. No judgment either way." The kindness was disarming. Andrew had expected. What? Suspicion? Interrogation? Not this easy acceptance that he existed, and that was enough. "I'd like to help, if that's okay." "Elizabeth," Father Joseph called toward the kitchen. "We have a new volunteer." Andrew's stomach dropped like an elevator with cut cables. She turned from where she chopped onions, wiped her hands on her apron, looked directly at him. Nothing. No recognition. No widening eyes or sharp intake of breath. Just a warm, professional smile from a woman who saw hundreds of faces every week. Faces in need. Faces in pain. Why would she recognize the man who'd abandoned her in her darkest hour? Hidden now, beneath 40 added pounds, a beard, different glasses, and a decade of accumulated guilt? "Hi, I'm Lizzie." Her hand extended, fingers cold and thinner than he remembered. Thanks for helping out. Have you done kitchen work before? Andrew shook her hand, fighting the urge to hold on. Not really. I'm Andrew. He couldn't help it. Used his real name. Some perverse need to see if it triggered anything. A flicker, a pause, anything. Okay, Andrew, let's start you on something simple. And she assessed his build. He'd kept fit, swam daily in the penthouse pool. Can you carry heavy things? Yes. Great. We need rice bags from storage. 50-pound bags. We'll need 4. Think you can handle that? For the next 2 hours, Andrew Terry performed manual labor in a church basement, hauled rice and dried beans until his shoulders burned, washed industrial pots with harsh soap that left his hands raw, chopped vegetables while Elizabeth corrected his technique. Smaller pieces, they cook faster, and it's easier for folks with bad teeth. And he worked alongside volunteers who existed outside his world. Claudia, the postal worker, with her infectious laugh. Marcus, the social worker who clearly admired Elizabeth. Deb, the retired teacher who'd brought homemade cookies. And he watched Elizabeth lead. Not commanding, but everyone deferred to her. She knew where everything lived, who needed what, how to solve problems before they became crises. This was her kingdom, 600 square feet of church basement where she was needed, valued, essential. At 7:45, during a lull in service, Elizabeth stepped outside to the small courtyard. Andrew followed after a careful 30 seconds. She sat on concrete steps, head tilted back, eyes closed, exhausted. You okay? She opened her eyes, surprised. Oh, Andrew, right? Yeah, just needed air. He sat beside her, maintaining careful distance. You do this every day? Most days. It's important. Why? Elizabeth's pause stretched long enough that Andrew thought she wouldn't answer. Then, because someone has to care? And because it keeps me going? When my daughter died, I felt like dying too, but these people need me, so I stay alive. For them. She said it matter-of-factly. No self-pity, just truth. Andrew's throat closed. I'm sorry. About your daughter. Thank you. A pause. Do you have kids? The lie tasted like poison. No. Elizabeth pulled an insulin pen from her pocket, injected through her jeans. Casual, routine. Andrew watched, horrified at how normalized this crisis had become. She noticed his stare. Type 2 diabetes. Glamorous, right? A weak smile. I'm supposed to check my blood sugar before meals, but... She shrugged. I forget. That sounds dangerous. Lots of things are dangerous. Doesn't mean you stop living. They returned inside. The rest of the evening blurred, cleanup, packing leftovers. Final sweeps. At 9:05, Elizabeth said goodnight, grabbed her coat, climbed the stairs into November darkness. Andrew stayed 15 minutes longer, helping Father Joseph with final lockup. As he turned to leave, something caught his eye under a table. Elizabeth's small coin purse. Worn leather. Broken zipper. He picked it up. Inside, $14.73, an expired insurance card, and a faded photo of a gap-toothed little girl, Emma. Andrew stood there, holding his ex-wife's purse with his dead daughter's face staring up at him, and realized Elizabeth carried Emma everywhere. He hadn't looked at Emma's photo in 9 years. Andrew's life split cleanly down the middle like a geological fault line. 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. the billionaire. Morning laps in the penthouse pool. Conference calls about profit margins. TerraVest headquarters, where Marcus Yates watched him with increasing suspicion. You seem distracted, Marcus said during a board update. Andrew deflected, stalled the Pilsen demolition with invented environmental concerns, and left meetings early citing personal matters. His assistant assumed an affair, simpler than the truth. 5:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m., 4 nights a week, the volunteer. Target clothes, no watch, Redline South Street. Catherine's basement, where he was, just Andrew, reliable and unremarkable. Elizabeth still didn't recognize him. Andrew found himself both relieved and heartbroken by her blindness. By week 3, he'd stopped burning rice. By week 4, Father Joseph trusted him to manage the serving line solo. By week 5, Elizabeth told Claudia, Andrew's the most reliable volunteer we've had in months. High praise from a woman who didn't know she was praising her ex-husband. But Andrew noticed what others missed. Elizabeth's slow unraveling. Week 3, she forgot to eat dinner. Andrew made her a plate. She thanked him absently, picked at it like a bird. Week 4, a dizzy spell at the sink. Andrew steadied her. She laughed. Just stood up too fast. And at week 5, her clothes hung looser, cheekbones sharpened, collarbone too prominent. Week 6, tremors in her hands she tried to hide by staying busy. Working side by side, they talked. Elizabeth asked questions Andrew had prepared lies for. What do you do? For work? Used to work in finance. Taking time off. Burnout? Something like that. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. Sometimes you have to step away to remember why you started. Another night, she explained St. Catherine's. This was our parish. When my daughter was sick, these people prayed for her, brought us meals. After she died, I disappeared for a while. When I came back, they welcomed me. No questions, just love. Andrew kept his voice carefully neutral. What about her father, your ex-husband? Elizabeth's bitter laugh cut like glass. He was never really there. Even when he was standing next to me, the words landed like punches Andrew couldn't block. Week 6, the night before Thanksgiving, St. Catherine's served turkey and stuffing to over 200 people. Controlled chaos, all hands on deck. At 7:15, Elizabeth excused herself. I'll be right back. 20 minutes passed. Claudia frowned. Where's Lizzie? Andrew found her in the church bathroom, door cracked open. She sat on the floor, back against the wall, insulin pen in her shaking hand. She'd dropped it twice, couldn't grip it properly. Elizabeth? She didn't look up. I'm fine, just my blood sugar's low, or high. I forget which makes you shake. A bitter laugh. I'm supposed to check, but I ran out of test strips 3 weeks ago. Can't afford the refill until next paycheck. Let me buy them for you. Her head snapped up, fierce. No, I don't take charity. It's not charity, it's basic medical care. Everything's charity when you can't pay it back. Her voice cracked. I feed people because they can't feed themselves. That's different. I'm supposed to be able to take care of myself. Andrew understood then. You're sick because you're buying food for them instead of medicine for yourself. And I'm sick because my body's failing. Medicine just delays it. Food actually saves lives. He knelt beside her, kept his voice steady. Elizabeth, you can't save anyone if you're dead. She looked at him, really looked. And for a terrifying second, Andrew thought she knew. But then, you sound like my doctor and my ex-husband. Both wrong. She struggled to stand. Andrew helped her up, his hands remembering the shape of her, even though everything else had changed. At least eat something, please. A small smile. Okay, Andrew, you win. 1 plate. Later, cleaning up, Andrew found her medical bag abandoned in the bathroom. Inside, empty prescription bottles, collection notices for $14,780, and a letter dated 3 weeks ago. Final notice. Patient Elizabeth Caldwell has missed 3 consecutive appointments. Continued noncompliance may result in serious complications including neuropathy, retinopathy, kidney failure. Andrew photographed everything, returned the bag exactly where she'd left it. But the letter's words burned in his mind all the way home. Serious complications, kidney failure, continued noncompliance, she was dying, slowly, deliberately, and nobody could stop her. The boardroom on the 52nd floor smelled like power. Leather chairs, imported coffee, the faint chemical scent of freshly printed quarterly reports. Marcus Yates stood at the presentation screen, his frustration barely contained behind corporate professionalism. The Pilsen project, 3 months past demolition date, were hemorrhaging holding cost. He fixed Andrew with a stare that demanded answers. The board wants to know why you keep blocking approval. Andrew felt every eye in the room turn toward him. Patricia Goldstein, lead investor, leaned forward with the predatory interest of old money sensing weakness. Environmental review isn't complete, Andrew said. The lie tasted familiar by now. Environmental cleared 6 weeks ago. Marcus's voice carried an edge. Andrew, what's going on? You're never here. You miss meetings. You're different. Patricia's manicured fingers drummed the mahogany table. Andrew, this isn't like you. Pilsen displaces 89 families? Yes, but it generates $340 million in revenue. That's our business model. It's always been our business model. Andrew heard himself ask, what happens to the 89 families? Silence descended like a guillotine blade. Marcus laughed, uncomfortable. They relocate. HUD vouchers, relocation assistance, standard procedure. Where do they go? Does it matter? Marcus's confusion seemed genuine. Andrew, are you feeling okay? Andrew stood. The room tilted slightly. Meeting adjourned. I need time to think. Andrew, Patricia's voice carried warning. I said adjourned. At 2:30 p.m., alone in his penthouse, Andrew read Yolanda's supplemental report. Pilsen Project Impact Analysis cross-referenced Terravest, demolition addresses with St. Catherine's client list. Matches, 23 families, 67 individuals, Mr. Washington, Rosa and her children, Damon, whose family displacement triggered his relapse. The numbers on the page blurred. Andrew walked to his bathroom and vomited. St. Catherine's basement buzzed with Thanksgiving Eve energy. Elizabeth coordinated volunteers, laughing despite visible exhaustion. When Andrew arrived, she smiled, genuine warmth that made his chest ache. "Can we talk?" he asked. "After service?" Surprise flickered across her face. "Sure. Everything okay?" "I need your advice on something." At 9:20, they sat on the courtyard steps. November cold bit through Andrew's hoodie. He'd never been this cold in his adult life, always insulated by heated cars and climate-controlled buildings. "If you knew someone powerful was hurting people," Andrew said carefully, "not intentionally, but through their business, what would you do?" Elizabeth studied him. "Is this about you, your old finance job?" "Hypothetically." "Hypothetically?" Her voice carried quiet intensity. "I'd tell them to stop. Wealth built on suffering is just theft with extra steps." What if stopping meant losing everything?" Elizabeth's eyes held steel. "What good is respect from people who think profit matters more than humanity?" She paused. "Andrew, I was married to a man like that. He built an empire, made millions, lost everything that mattered. His daughter died, asking for him, and he was halfway across the world closing a deal." Andrew couldn't breathe. "What happened to him?" "I divorced him. Haven't seen him in 10 years. Don't want to." Her voice softened. "I don't hate him. I pity him. He's living, but he's not alive. Just money moving through the world, leaving damage." Andrew forced the words out. "If he showed up now." Said he wanted to change. "Could you forgive him?" Elizabeth looked at him directly. "Forgiveness isn't about him. It's about me. I forgave him years ago because holding anger was killing me." And a pause. "But forgiveness doesn't mean trust. It just means I'm not carrying his shit anymore." "Lizzie." "Phone!" Claudia's voice shattered the moment. "Dr. Kim says it's urgent." Elizabeth stood, worried. "That's my boss. Something must be wrong." To Andrew. "Sorry, see you tomorrow?" "Yeah, tomorrow." She hurried inside. Andrew sat alone, processing, when a scream cut through the night. "Call 911. She's not breathing." Andrew ran. The basement. Elizabeth collapsed, lips blue, Claudia doing compressions. Andrew pushed through, used his boardroom command voice. "I'm trained. Let me—" Her body felt fragile under his hands. 1, 2, 3. Counting compressions, counting the seconds until sirens, counting all the ways he'd failed her. Paramedics arrived. Blood sugar at 34, severe hypoglycemic shock. "How long since she ate?" Claudia's voice broke. "She skipped lunch and dinner, too busy serving everyone else." In the ambulance, holding Elizabeth's cold hand, Andrew made his decision. When she woke up, he'd tell her everything. His silenced phone showed 47 missed calls. One voicemail from Marcus. "Board voted. Pilsen demolition starts Monday. I tried to stall, but call me." Monday was 3 days away. Northwestern Memorial's ER at 1:40 a.m. existed in a different dimension. Fluorescent purgatory where time moved in IV drips and intercom codes. Andrew sat among the wreckage of American emergency medicine. Gunshot wounds, drunk drivers, crying babies with fever. He'd never been in a public ER. His health care came with concierge doctors and private suites. Every 20 minutes, "Elizabeth Caldwell, any update?" Every 20 minutes, "Still being treated." "Are you family?" "Brother." The lie felt smaller than his others. At 4:22, doctor. Sarah Kim arrived, recognized Andrew from the street. "You. What are you doing here?" "I was there when she collapsed, doctor." Kim studied him with clinical precision, then sat. "She's stable, barely. Blood sugar dropped to 28, coma territory. We got it up, ran full labs." Her anger surfaced. "It's bad. A 1C at 11.3, blood pressure 168 over 105. She's lost 19 pounds in 3 months. What can I do?" "You can't do anything. She needs to decide she's worth saving." Bitter exhaustion colored her voice. "She's been punishing herself for 10 years. I don't know what happened, but she's got a death wish disguised as charity." Andrew's voice came out quiet. "Her daughter died, and her husband wasn't there." Dr. Kim's expression softened fractionally. "Then you know. She blames herself. Thinks if she saves enough people, maybe it'll balance out." She stood. "ICU at 8 a.m. They'll allow visitors." 8:05. Elizabeth looked small in the hospital bed, IV snaking into her arm, monitors beeping their mechanical lullaby. When she saw Andrew, she smiled weakly. "Hey, you didn't have to come." Andrew pulled a chair close. "Yeah, I did. I'm fine. Low blood sugar. I just need to be more careful." "Elizabeth, you almost died." "People say that." Dismissive. "But I didn't." "Barely." Silence stretched. Then Elizabeth asked the question Andrew had been dreading. "Why do you care? You barely know me." This was it, the precipice. "Because I know what it's like to hate yourself so much you stop wanting to live, and I know you deserve better." Tears formed in Elizabeth's eyes. You don't know anything about me. And I know you carry your daughter's photo everywhere. I know you visit her grave every Sunday. I know you're killing yourself because you think you should have died instead of her. Elizabeth sat up, defensive. How do you... Realization dawned. You went through my purse. Yes. You had no right. I know, but I needed to understand why someone so good was destroying herself. The explosion came like a dam breaking. You don't get to judge me. You don't know what it's like to lose a child, to watch them die, because you couldn't afford better treatment fast enough. To have your husband choose money over her last moments. Andrew broke. I do know. What? He stood, couldn't look at her. I know exactly what it's like, because I'm him. Silence. Heart monitors beeped. A code blue echoed down the hall. No, Elizabeth's whisper barely registered. Andrew turned, removed his glasses. It's me, Elizabeth. It's Andrew. Recognition hit her like a physical blow. 10 years of age and regret on his face. The beard, the weight. But yes, those eyes. That stance when he was about to deliver bad news. Get out, Elizabeth. Get out. And she ripped out her IV, tried to climb from the bed. Get out, get out, get out. Nurses rushed in. Doctor. Kim appeared. What did you do? Security arrived. Andrew was escorted out, the last sound Elizabeth sobbing. He left her. He left Emma. I never want to see him again. In the parking garage, 8:47 a.m. Thanksgiving morning, Andrew's phone rang. Marcus. We need final signatures for Pilsen. Crews start Monday. Andrew's voice came from somewhere hollow. No. What? Cancel it. All of it. Pilsen. Bronzeville. Every project that displaces families. Cancel them. Andrew, that's $890 million in revenue. I don't care. Shut them down. Today. The board will remove you as CEO. Then they remove me. He hung up, looked back at the hospital tower where Elizabeth hated him, where Emma was 10 years dead, where Andrew Terry had absolutely nothing left to lose. His phone buzzed. Father Joseph, Elizabeth needs her purple journal from her apartment. 4216 South Cottage Grove, Unit 2B. Key under the mat. She's asking for it constantly. Andrew stared at the address. He'd watched that building from across the street, never entered. Now he had permission. The rideshare dropped Andrew at a 3-story walk-up in Kenwood. Brick facade from the 1940s, fire escapes zigzagging upward, laundry hanging in windows. Working-class Chicago. Not poor, but not comfortable. Key under the mat, exactly as Father Joseph said. Andrew's hands shook, unlocking the door. Elizabeth's apartment breathed her absence. 720 square feet of carefully maintained poverty. Secondhand couch with a throw blanket. Hiding worn spots, no TV. Bookshelves holding theology texts and Emma's old children's books. Where the wild things are. The Giving Tree. Andrew couldn't look at them. Photos covered one wall. Emma at every age. Newborn, toddler, gap-toothed at 6, bald from chemo at 7. And one wedding photo. Andrew and Elizabeth on courthouse steps, both impossibly young, laughing. Andrew moved to the kitchen. Opened the fridge. Hating himself. 6 eggs, half-gallon of milk, expiring tomorrow. Wilted lettuce. Just enough to survive. Never enough to thrive. On the counter, a pill organizer sat half empty. She'd been skipping doses. The bedroom held a neatly made bed with hospital corners. Elizabeth always did that. The nightstand drawer opened with a whisper. The purple journal lay there like a landmine. Andrew picked it up carefully. Purple cloth cover, hand-drawn silver stars, Emma's artwork. He opened to a random page. Today I made Mommy laugh. We played princesses, and I was the queen, and Mommy was the dragon. But a nice dragon who gives hugs. Daddy called, but he was busy. He's always busy. But that's okay because he's making money for Disneyland. Maybe this summer. They never went to Disneyland. Emma got sick that spring. The entries grew shorter, handwriting shakier. I don't feel good. The medicine makes me sleepy. Mommy reads to me. My hair is falling out. Mommy says I'm still beautiful. She cried in the bathroom. Daddy's on a trip. I made him a picture for when he comes back, and then Elizabeth's handwriting. The entry that ended everything. November 4th, 2019, 3:42 a.m. Emma Grace. Terry stopped breathing. Andrew called at 4:15 from Singapore, 13 hours too late. I told him not to bother coming home. What home? Our daughter's dead. But there were more entries, months later. Elizabeth's journey through grief. February 2020. I can't stay in our house. Every room has Emma's ghost. Moving to Southside, near St. Catharines. In June 2020, started volunteering. It's the only time I don't want to die. March 2023. Doctor. Kim diagnosed diabetes. I should take it seriously. But why? What am I living for? The latest entry 3 weeks ago. November 2024. There's a new volunteer. Andrew, not my Andrew, different person. He's kind, works hard. Sometimes I catch him looking at me like he knows me, like he sees the broken parts I hide. It's unsettling. But it's been 10 years since someone looked at me like I matter. Tucked in the back, Emma's last drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. Mommy, Daddy, Emma, my family forever. A note in Emma's shaky handwriting. Dear Daddy, I know you're working hard. Mommy says you're saving the world. When I get better, will you take me to the park? I love you to the moon. And back, Emma. She drew this the day before she died, still believing in him. Andrew sat on Elizabeth's floor and sobbed, ugly, full-body crying he hadn't done since standing in Emma's empty bedroom. He wrapped the journal carefully in a kitchen towel. On Elizabeth's nightstand, he left an envelope. $15,000 cash and a note. Elizabeth, this isn't charity. It's a debt payment. I owe you 10 years of support. Use it for your health. Please, don't punish yourself for my failures. A. Outside, Andrew called Robert. I need the car. I'm going to the office. Sir, it's Thanksgiving. I know. I have a company to destroy. His phone rang. Unknown number. Patricia Goldstein's voice carried ice. Mr. Terry, Marcus informed us of your decision regarding Pilsen. The board is calling an emergency meeting. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., be there. Or we'll remove you as CEO. 12 people occupied the 52nd floor boardroom at 9 a.m. sharp. Patricia Goldstein sat at the head, flanked by venture capitalists and real estate moguls whose combined worth could buy small nations. Marcus Yates sat as corporate officer, legal counsel ready with removal documents. Andrew sat alone. Let's be clear, Patricia began. TerraVest has fiduciary duty to shareholders. Your decision to cancel $890 million in projects violates that duty. We're determining if you're fit to continue as CEO. I understand, Andrew said. Do you? Marcus says you've been absent for weeks, missing meetings, making erratic decisions. Her eyes narrowed. Throwing away our most profitable quarter over what? Sentiment? Over people. 89 families in Pilsen, 4,000 displaced across Southside. People now living in shelters because we decided their homes were worth less than our margins. Richard Chen leaned forward. Those properties were legally acquired. Market rate. Market rate in a market we manipulated. Andrew's voice stayed level. We buy low, in blighted neighborhoods. Rezone, sell high. The original residents can't afford to return. We're not developers. We're economic cleansers. Marcus's frustration broke through. Andrew, this is capitalism. We create value, build modern housing. For who? Andrew stood. Not for the people already there. We evicted a 79-year-old veteran. He sleeps in a church basement now. We displaced a single mother, 7 people in a 1-bedroom. We destroyed a recovering addict's support system. He relapsed. Patricia's fingers drummed mahogany. You're talking about individuals. We make citywide decisions. You can't let specific cases cloud strategic thinking. People. Andrew's voice rose. They have names. Mr. Washington, Rosa, Damon. I know them. I served them Thanksgiving dinner while they told me how our company destroyed their lives. They didn't even know I signed the eviction orders. Silence fell like a shroud. James Liu spoke carefully. You served them dinner? Yes, at St. Catherine's Community Kitchen in Bronzeville, 6 miles from here. I've been volunteering for 6 weeks, working alongside people we've displaced, learning what we actually built, a city where the poor serve the rich, and the rich pretend the poor don't exist. Marcus looked genuinely shaken. Jesus Christ. You've been volunteering at a soup kitchen while running a $2.3 billion company? No. I've been learning what it means to be human while running an engine of inequality. Andrew pulled out his proposal. TerraVest transforms to community equity development. We cancel displacement projects, convert properties to affordable housing, create community land trusts where residents become co-owners. We pilot Southside Commons, $180 million invested in Bronzeville, mixed income housing, community center, medical clinic. Patricia laughed. And the ROI on this fantasy? 7 to 10% annually. Lower than our current model, but sustainable. Ethical. We avoid lawsuits from displaced tenants. Susan Martinez scoffed. 7%? We're getting 23 on luxury developments. By externalizing costs onto the city. We profit, taxpayers pay for homeless services and emergency health care. My model internalizes that. Marcus shook his head. This is corporate suicide. Shareholders will revolt. So we go private. I buy out any shareholder who wants to exit. I'll leverage everything. My penthouse, investments, everything. I'm all in. Patricia's voice turned cold. This is insane. I'm calling for a vote. All in favor of removing Andrew Terry as CEO? 7 hands raised. Majority? Andrew, effective immediately. Wait. Andrew smiled grimly, pulled out a second document. I anticipated this. Here's my resignation and the sale of my majority shares to the Southside Community Trust, a nonprofit I established this morning. I'm donating $340 million in TerraVest properties. Chaos erupted. Marcus, you can't. Patricia, that's theft. Andrew remained calm. I own 54%. I can donate my shares to anyone. The trust will manage properties according to my proposal. You keep the rest. Build your luxury towers. I'm out. He walked out, left his badge, his keys, his Patek Philippe on the table. Sell this if you need cash. 37 minutes later, he wasn't CEO, wasn't a billionaire, just a man who'd finally chosen right. On Michigan Avenue at 2:47 p.m., his phone rang. Elizabeth. His heart stopped. Father Joseph told me what you did. The money, the journal. Her voice was weak, but not angry. I don't forgive you for Emma. I don't know if I ever can, but I'm going to use the money for medicine, for myself. Because you're right. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just keep showing up. At St. Catherine's. Not as Andrew Terry, billionaire, as Andrew the volunteer. Can you do that? Yes. Every day. Okay. I'll see you there. That's after she hung up. An email arrived from Marcus's personal account. What you did was either bravest or stupidest. Probably both. Stock dropped 18%. But I've been running numbers on Southside Commons. It's actually viable. Call me. I think I just quit. Marcus. 18 months later, Southside Commons rose where abandoned buildings once stood. 240 units of affordable housing, a community center with St. Catherine's Satellite Kitchen, a free health clinic directed by Dr. Sarah Kim, childcare, job training, Mr. Washington's rooftop garden taught urban farming to neighborhood kids. Opening day, April 2026. 200 people gathered. Residents, volunteers, city officials, press. No TerraVest branding. Just a Southside Commons, a community project. A Father Joseph opened with prayer. We celebrate not just buildings, but the radical idea that every person deserves home. Not shelter, home, Dr. Kim spoke about free healthcare as human right. Rosa, the young mother, spoke about having her own two-bedroom apartment. Mr. Washington spoke about regaining dignity at 79. Marcus Yates, now director of Southside Commons, stood at the podium. I used to believe business was about maximizing profit, then someone showed me it could be about maximizing human flourishing. Southside Commons proves we can build wealth without destroying communities. Then Elizabeth walked to the microphone. 18 months healthier, color in her cheeks, steadier gait, eyes brighter. She'd been taking medications, eating regularly, healing. I'm not good at speeches, she began, but I need to say something. 10 years ago, I lost my daughter. When Emma died, I wanted to die too. I punished myself for years, stopped caring about my health, stopped believing I deserved to live. She paused. Andrew stood in the back, invisible in the crowd. Then someone from my past reappeared, someone who'd hurt me deeply. And he did something unexpected. He listened. He showed up. He changed. Not with words, with actions. He gave away his fortune to build this place. Elizabeth looked directly at Andrew. Their eyes met. Andrew Terry is here today. Most of you know him as the volunteer who serves dinner, fixes toilets, tutors kids. Some know he funded this. What you might not know is he's my ex-husband, the man I divorced 10 years ago. The man who chose business over our dying daughter. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Andrew pushed forward, climbed the stage. I told myself I'd never forgive him, Elizabeth continued. But watching him work, really work, not for credit, but to become better, I realized forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about releasing the past to build the future. So, Andrew, I forgive you. For Emma, for us, for everything. Andrew's voice broke. None of us deserve grace. We just receive it and pass it on. She pulled Emma's purple journal from her bag, opened to the last drawing, the stick figure family under the rainbow. Emma believed in forever, not in time, but in love. This place is forever, because you finally chose people over profit. That's the billionaire heart Emma wanted you to have. She handed him the journal. They embraced, not romantic, but relief and shared grief and mutual respect. The crowd applauded. Children ran through the playground. Mr. Washington showed visitors the garden. Dr. Kim opened clinic doors. At sunset, Andrew and Elizabeth sat on a courtyard bench. Time for evening service at St. Catherine's. Ready? Andrew asked. Always. They walked together toward the community kitchen, not husband and wife, but two broken people who found redemption in serving others. Two souls who learned the truest wealth isn't counted in dollars, but in lives touched, families housed, dignity restored. Because the greatest fortune isn't what you build for yourself. It's what you build for others. They say you can't put a price on redemption, But Andrew Terry learned the exact cost. $2.1 billion, one corporate empire, and 10 years of accumulated grief finally allowed to breathe. The math doesn't make sense to most people. Trade billions for breaking even? Trade penthouse for church basement? Trade power for service? But here's what the spreadsheets never capture. Wealth is just a story we tell ourselves about worth. Andrew spent a decade believing his worth came from what he built: towers, portfolios, profit margins that looked beautiful on quarterly reports and left devastation in the footnotes. Emma's last drawing taught him differently. 3 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. My family forever. She drew it the day before she died. Still believing her father would choose her over Singapore. Still believing love mattered more than mergers. She was 7 years old and dying, and she understood what her father spent 40 years missing. The only currency that survives us is kindness. Elizabeth understood too. She nearly destroyed herself trying to balance cosmic scales, as if enough served meals could resurrect a daughter, as if enough insulin skipped could atone for survival. But redemption isn't transaction, it's transformation. Andrew didn't buy his way back into Elizabeth's life. He showed up, chopped vegetables, served strangers, dismantled the empire that displaced the very people he learned to love. That's the billionaire heart, not the one that hoards, but the one that gives until giving becomes breathing. Money can't buy happiness, but spent correctly, it can buy someone else's chance at it. And that, Emma would say, is the whole point. Fiction disclaimer: this is a work of fiction created for entertainment purposes. All characters, organizations, businesses, and events portrayed in this story are entirely fictional. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or deceased, companies, or events is purely coincidental. Billionaire Heart Stories is a creative platform for exploring themes of redemption, hidden identity, and moral transformation through fictional narratives set in contemporary America.